Andrew Miller was certain that his wife's cherished cat was the cause of his constant scratching of his scalp, which drove him to the brink. His disease only got worse despite spending hundreds on flea treatments and even sending the cat away. He developed strange pimples with protuberant protuberances that no medicine could stop. Lisa's spine-tingling scream reverberated throughout their whole house as she finally used a magnifying glass to check his scalp in brilliant light. Andrew Miller had been the happiest guy alive 6 months prior. Everyone who knew him had been taken aback by his brief affair with Lisa. However, the pair was unconcerned. They had recently moved into their first house together, were in love, and everything appeared ideal. Lisa had brought along her longtime companion, an orange tabby cat named Oliver, who had been with her through thick and thin for years before Andrew entered the picture. Andrew had recently landed a new job at an industrial chemical plant that paid well and offered good benefits. Everything was falling into place exactly as they had planned until one fateful evening when Andrew felt an unusual sensation on his scalp. At first, it was just a slight itch, nothing concerning. Andrew assumed it was just dandruff or dry skin from the changing weather. He picked up a medicated shampoo during his next grocery run and thought that would be the end of it. But over the next week, something strange began to happen. Instead of improving, the itching intensified. What started as an occasional annoyance transformed into an almost constant distraction. Andrew found himself absent-mindedly scratching his head during meetings at work, while driving and even in his sleep. Lisa would sometimes wake up to find him furiously scratching his scalp in the middle of the night. That was when Andrew first made the connection that would nearly destroy his marriage. The timing of his mysterious itching coincided with their move into the new house with Oliver. Could Lisa's beloved cat be the culprit? Andrew had never lived with pets before, and the more he thought about it, the more convinced he became that Oliver had brought Fleas into their home. Without hesitation, Andrew drove to the nearest pet store and spent over $200 on premium flea treatments. He bought special shampoo for Oliver, flea bombs for the house, and sprays for their furniture. Lisa was surprised by his conclusion, since Oliver showed absolutely no signs of fleas. Still, she wanted to support her husband and agreed to the treatments. Oliver endured a flea bath, looking utterly betrayed as Lisa shampooed his fur with the expensive treatment Andrew had purchased. But despite all their efforts, Andrew's condition only worsened. The itching became so intense that he could barely focus at work. His scalp felt like it was constantly crawling with invisible invaders. Their once blissful home became filled with tension. Then came the breaking point. After a particularly bad night where Andrew barely slept at all, he lashed out in frustration. Patience worn thin by weeks of discomfort, Andrew demanded that Lisa get rid of Oliver. The cat had to go, he insisted. It was the only explanation for his misery. Lisa was devastated. Oliver had been her faithful companion through the darkest period of her life. Before she met Andrew, the thought of abandoning him was unthinkable. Tearfully, Lisa tried to reason with Andrew, pointing out that Oliver showed no signs of fleas and suggested there might be another explanation for Andrew's symptoms. The tension in their young marriage became unbearable. Eventually, with tears streaming down her face, Lisa packed up Oliver's toys, food, and bed. She drove the confused cat to her sister's house, sobbing the entire way. And still, Andrew's mysterious condition persisted, even worsening after Oliver's departure, a fact Lisa noted but knew better than to point out, given Andrew's fragile state. Meanwhile, Andrew's physical symptoms continued to escalate. Small, raised bumps appeared across his scalp, which he assumed were flea bites. The itching became so unbearable that he took to wearing hats constantly, even indoors and during the increasingly warm spring weather. At work, his condition became impossible to ignore. Co-workers noticed his constant scratching and distraction. His supervisor pulled him aside to express concern about his focus and performance. After witnessing Andrew endure yet another sleepless night of agony, Lisa put her foot down. Despite their strained relationship, she still cared deeply for her husband and couldn't stand seeing him suffer any longer. She insisted they visit a doctor, and Andrew, having exhausted all other options, reluctantly agreed. The physician listened carefully to Andrew's symptoms and examined his scalp. The diagnosis was contact dermatitis, an allergic reaction to something Andrew was coming into contact with. The doctor suggested it might be related to his new workplace, perhaps chemicals or protective equipment he was using. Andrew was prescribed antihistamines and a topical cream to reduce inflammation and itching. The medications provided little relief, and Andrew's condition continued its mysterious progression. 2 months into this nightmarish ordeal, Andrew developed a fever. His body ached and he felt constantly fatigued. But most alarmingly, the bumps on his scalp had evolved in a disturbing way. Strange thread-like protrusions now emerged from some of them. They were tiny but unmistakable, like miniature fibers growing directly out of his skin. One evening, after a particularly difficult day, Andrew sat on the edge of their bed, head in his hands, utterly defeated. Despite their ongoing tension, Lisa's heart broke. Seeing her husband in such distress, she offered to help apply the medicated cream to the areas of his scalp he couldn't easily reach. Sitting behind him on the bed, Lisa switched on the bright bedside lamp to get a better view of his scalp. As she parted his hair to apply the cream, something caught her eye. The bumps looked different than she remembered. Curious, she reached for her reading glasses and then, still not satisfied with what she was seeing, grabbed a magnifying glass from her nightstand drawer. As the magnified view came into focus, Lisa's blood ran cold. Under the magnification, she could clearly see that the thread-like protrusions weren't hair or scabs or any normal skin formation. They were actual fibers, tiny colored strands emerging directly from Andrew's skin. Some were black, others blue or red, appearing like microscopic threads pushing through his scalp. The horror of this unnatural sight caused Lisa to let out a scream that echoed throughout their home. This wasn't a rash or allergic reaction. This wasn't normal. Something was terribly inexplicably wrong. Terrified by Lisa's reaction and the confirmation that his condition was far more serious than they'd thought, Andrew insisted they go to the emergency room immediately. Finally, a dermatologist with experience in rare conditions diagnosed Andrew with the Morgellons disease, a controversial condition many doctors considered psychological rather than physical. Patients reported exactly what Andrew experienced: intense itching, crawling sensations, and unexplainable fibers emerging from the skin. The medical team was baffled until Andrew mentioned his job at the chemical plant. This triggered further investigation, revealing several other employees from the same facility had developed similar symptoms over the years. Without proper diagnosis, environmental testing discovered high levels of unusual chemical compounds not being adequately filtered from the air. These toxins, combined with Andrew's sensitivity, had likely triggered his Morgellons symptoms. The connection was to his workplace, not Lisa's innocent cat. The realization hit Andrew hard. He had blamed Oliver and nearly destroyed his marriage over a misdiagnosis. Overwhelmed with shame, Andrew immediately called Lisa from the hospital and apologized, begging her to bring the cat home. Lisa quickly arranged for her pet's return. Andrew began proper treatment, transferring to a different department and joining a Morgellons support group. His symptoms gradually improved under a specialist who believed in the physical basis of the condition. Their ordeal revealed an unexpected resilience in their relationship. The trial had nearly broken them, but recovering together strengthened their bond. Through it all, Oliver remained blissfully unaware, purring contentedly as Andrew gently stroked his fur. A simple pleasure now representing healing on many levels. What would you do if, faced with a mysterious illness that doctors struggled to diagnose? How far would you go to find answers when your health and relationship were on the line?